Hello, this is Dave, and welcome to Equities Story, and welcome to Monday, the 31st of October, 2022. And I'm here with the Wolf, and this is just general share advice and not personal advice.
Yes.
2022. My God, Wolf, we're getting old.
Right.
Okay. Let's have a look. What's happening? So we had a great, strong move up on the Dow, Wolfie, over the and back over trend, and you look at that price action last week, and now if the Dow ends where it is, if the Dow sort of doesn't do too much tonight or doesn't collapse, this is one of the best Octobers for 30-40 years. Unbelievable.
The world is upside down this year, Dave. You know, things that are supposed to be happening don't happen. When things that aren't supposed to happen do happen. So you've got, normally October is like a black October. Everyone hates it. One of the better ones we had, like you said, 40 years.
And the price action's excellent, and the market's putting seemingly putting a lot of issues to the side at the moment and buying it. And a little bit of the talk of why we're doing this is that we think there's still that element of there's no alternative around, especially with the scary bond market, which we talked about at the beginning of last week. And however,
it's just so fun, isn't it? It's trading, investing. If you're a gambler at heart, where else would you go and play?
The market's also, Wolf, I still think we're going to have possibly in November have this more volatility and possibly a strong move down. And I've talked to you about this possibility of this war in Europe again getting a lot bigger than what it is at the moment. And that's the catalyst where I think we could have a little bit of a shock to the market, and maybe there's another buying opportunity if that happens, and if the market does come down to that 26,000 before the end of the year. We were talking before the break. We got different views on this. You said, "Oh, Dave, you old conspiracy theorist, you."
Well, you are. That's self-admitted one.
No, I am. I still believe in aliens and and ghosts, and I'm really scared, Wolf, because it's Halloween. But the point is this: is that spread across the newspapers in the UK was that Liz Truss, the British Prime Minister's phone, has been hacked, and the Russians have said they have evidence, or that the British government were the ones that blew up the Nord Stream gas pipe. Now, I said to you at the time, I don't believe it was Russia at all, because why would the Russians blow up their own pipeline? That was the only thing they had to negotiate with. And I thought at the time that was a very smart move, whoever did it, right? And it does, to be honest with you, it makes sense to me that, one of the few armies in the world that maybe have the expertise to do something like that is the British, right? They've said they were told to do so by the Americans, and they followed orders. Now, it's not good, Wolf, right? Because in some ways, that is an act of war. You can't go blowing up another country if you're not at war with them, infrastructure assets, right? Now, obviously, the English should never admit to it if it is true, but it is a complete act of war. Now, I'm a little bit concerned at the moment that the Russians might retaliate and make a statement, and I can just see this war escalating and escalating and escalating. This, my friend, is a danger. It's a danger for November, a bigger war in Europe. And
I tell you what, Putin loves people like you. It's because it's exactly what they want. It's what I want to hear, so they can escalate it and retaliate. That's exactly what I want to hear.
I don't think that. I don't think that.
Thank you. You'll get a nice Christmas card this year.
I don't think that's true at all, and I don't believe Putin wants to escalate it unless he's forced to, because Putin knows he's going to lose.
Well, that's why he wants to escalate it, because he's losing.
No, Pete, that doesn't make sense. You don't escalate if you're going to lose. You're not going to beat the Americans on a few nukes, are you?
Well,
I
think the Americans don't want to get involved in this, first of all. I
think they are.
Quietly.
What do you mean they don't want to get it? Pete, they're already involved. The Americans have given more money to Ukraine, another 60 billion. I mean, they've sent billions and billions and billions.
But there's involvement and doesn't actually go and fight involvement, right? So of course, monetary wise, I mean, even Australia has been involved then.
Well, I'm sure they've already
globally. Everyone's probably been involved in this.
Well, I'm sure they've had special forces there, the Brits, the French, obviously training the Ukrainians.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
I mean, I think they're pretty involved with it. I don't think that's the case, but this is the danger, Wolf, that this war is going to get a lot worse.
Oh, it's like it anyway. Look, I think, like I said, we talked it to death. I mean, obviously Putin doesn't want to lose because he's going to look completely stupid and probably going to get ousted. So he's going to try to win it somehow.
All right. Well, anyway, so how do you play it then? This market, if you're investing in your
That's a good question. I think we go with the flow, don't we? As per usual.
Yeah, but you go, yeah. I mean, but you don't want to be like the lemmings. You don't want to run off the end of the cliff,
no,
right?
And the thing is, you made a good point last week, right? Why?
So the point last week was, yeah, we said beginning of the week the market's going to have a run. It did. We've had the best, ended up having the best one, possibly the best October for 30, 40 years. I do think that we're going to have, this war is going to get worse. And I think if it does, we're going to have a shock to the system. And that is going to be, again, most probably where I'd be looking to buy a little bit more after we've had a bit of an issue. Yeah, no. So how do you play it? I think if I was trending, and this is what I said on Einstein, if I was a short-term trader and I was making profits, by Thursday, I'd be looking to take some chips off the table.
Okay.
If I was a long-term, I've got my long-term position. I'm fine with that. I know it's going to be volatile. I know it could go down, but I'm fine with it. But I think if I was a short-term trader and I was making profits, I'd be aggressive towards Thursday or Friday. Does that help? Because what I'm trying to do is put the context of this crazy world into look how we can make money from it. And I think if you've got profits in your short term, just don't be greedy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On that front, the trading wise, absolutely. And we made a very, very good point last week. When we agreed that you're gravitating towards and nibbling on the really good stories, the value stories from the big stuff, and gravitating towards the really fantastic stories on the growth side that have been sold down, or if they haven't, you're waiting for them to be actually sold down a little bit further so you can buy some. So, even though we talked about that, this might be, the conflict might escalate and we might see another little bit of a downside, we're happy with that because we're long term, and I'm talking about long term right now. You want to pick some of those stories up on a nibble here and there.
Well, definitely, Wolf. And the long-term idea with a lot of the stories the other week, I think it's good to see the sort of, they're all up 4 or 5%. Mad looking particularly good. And we had a few people last week that were like a little bit, oh, Dave, you liked it, went down. And we said it was going higher, and it is going higher. And it's again hit that 350, looking very, very, very strong. And PWH that had actually Wolf a buy signal on the weekend. Okay. I think looking strong, and you feel if it can cement itself above that $10, it could go a little bit higher, this one. Yeah. And good to see things like ARB. These are real long-term stories, up 6% today. Yep. So really, really sort of happy with that. And some of the bigger stories, Wolf.
Green. Everything is green.
Yeah, it was interesting. Even Elders I saw on the charts just poking its little head up, saying, "Hello, guys, we're back." Worley's was on Einstein again, just looking a lot better, isn't it? And the little aristocrat, which, to be honest, it's been a story. Obviously, you can see why we haven't been talking about it really for the last year. But hello, we're back.
Yeah.
Is it doing this? Are we back to here? Hello, we're back.
I think we're probably going to find out in the next 2 weeks because of reporting, Dave. So we'll start find out.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get that where it thought it was back and then it wasn't back. But most of the time when we jump back over the trend, it has said it's back. So hopefully it's back. And like you said, it is a risk event coming with that stock. So now we sort of, Wolf, we've looked at the market. We sort of discussed how we think we should play it, right? I called you on the best looking chart I had on the weekend was LAU.
Yep.
I didn't realize Soul Patts was such a big shareholder in there, although they have reduced a little bit later, but they still own about 20%. But this company is really interesting. It has been ever since we liked that chart, ever since we had that breakout at 48 cents. It's just gone on and on with it, and it still looks very, very good, Wolfie. Now, I know you haven't had time to have a look at it, and you were going to, but when you look at a story which is got a nice dividend of 7.69%, trading on a P of 10, market cap of 196 million, and revenue over 500. It's getting interesting.
Yeah, look, it's to me, it's all about its most recent announcements, really, because this is what's been driving this, right? Or maybe last 6 months, odd, because the previous 2 or 3 years is just going sideways and sideways and sideways. So I'm just interested to see, and this is where I'm going to do some research on this to see where it's at. I mean, I think just generally speaking, when I spoke to you on Sunday, when you picked this story up, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to have a look at this because it fundamentally looks pretty, attractive when you've got a low PE, you've got a high dividend, and it seems to be going quite well on the chart. So for me, my ears are pricked up, and I have to have a look at this.
All right, so it'd be interesting to have a look. Wolf, let's look at some stories that are announced today, and maybe we start with CRN.
Yeah,
giving a special dividend.
Yes, obviously, I mean, these coal companies, that's what they're doing at the moment. They are going through the throes of extra dividends on the back of really strong cash flows. CRN, remember, are still in that, I suppose, takeover world at the moment with, I think, Peabody. So God knows what's going on there, to be honest. There's some investors are liking it, some investors are not liking it. So it's in that crass plus. Remember, CRN is more about metallurgical coal than thermal coal. So for me, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think I'll be trading this. I'd probably be playing the other ones first, but it delivered quite okay, and it should be.
I think they're 20% thermal coal and 80%.
So they've got something there, right? At least.
Yeah, they've got a little bit, which makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Okay, next one.
IGO, I think, is the next one.
Yeah, this one's been an absolute tear, Wolfie. Now, I didn't put it on Einstein because I just think it's had a bit of a run. Yeah.
Needs a breather.
And it's looking a little bit like that, isn't it? It just looks like it could come back to that $14. So, but again, it's had some pretty good moves of late.
Yeah, look, again, good numbers. You know that some of the numbers will look lower because of the lower commodity prices. So overall, I mean, if you look at the business, what commodity they're in, the growth possibilities, and I think you are definitely probably long-term holding this as one of your exposures to the new metals where they're going to be used in the critical industries, the renewable industries, and so on. So I think they positioned themselves very, very well, Dave. And even though you had a tragic event, of course, with the CEO passing away, they are still very well run and possibly going to do quite well over the next few years.
Wolf, NTO, they said no to one offer. They've got another offer around $2. I think the company realized, I don't think they'll look. My gut feeling is that they're going to want at least $250 to sell this.
I agree, and I think there's going to be a bidding war. So that's why that's what the market's saying now. There's got two parties now. The bid is at 2. Market's saying 205, which means they're expecting a higher offer. Yeah, watch the space. I think if you're in this, I don't want to say it, but there's a tendency, maybe a strong tendency might go higher, 205 plus. So I'd be holding this.
ALC, Wolf. So this is a story that, I mean, the chart wasn't looking good, but this was a story I was thinking a little bit like if the markets are bouncing back, it could also have been quite an interesting hot stock, but the chart just wasn't good enough for me, Wolf. But I know fundamentally you like this story, and you look at the risk reward. Okay, it could go down to 10 cents, but somewhere around 12 cents, it's had a jump today. You think if you had that long-term approach, the risk reward could be pretty good. It's now at 14 cents and a little bit of buying today. It's plenty for sale at the moment at 14 cents. What's your view on ALC, Wolfie? And is this for you? Is this a story that you'd be looking at for the long term? or would you still want to see another quarter out of it?
No, look, I'm already in this, right? We've already spoken to this is one of the really risky type stuff if you want to buy and nibble on. EV buy, it's in the fund, so there's a disclaimer right there for you, and I'm happy to hold it long term. And of course with the smaller type stories like this one, Dave, where it's not quite profitable, it is marginally cash flow positive to negative cash flow positive quarter on quarter. So you got to watch it like a hawk to see how they're coming up. But overall, it is definitely heading that right direction. It's growing its revenues, expanding its product range, winning new customers. So you'd think if they keep playing their cards right, there's definitely a big push in this space to make sure there is no, deaths because of accidents or, things like that. So for me, this sort of patient type records and keeping and dosage and all those sort of things are very, very important. So I like the business. I like the business a lot overall. It's just a matter of just keeping the faith in this, and hopefully the company will execute, because I think it's going to head higher.
All right, brilliant, Wolf. And that's why I sort of posed the question to you, because I know there's a lot of small caps like this that you haven't brought because they're not as solid, they're not in healthcare, and that's why I like the fact that sort of you have got this one, because it's recurring earnings, it's healthcare, it's growth, and it's a little bit more secure, isn't it, than some sort of fly by night.
It's probably got more boxes ticked for me, right, than some of the others. And this is why right now you've got to be very picky what sort of things you add to your portfolio. With the really big loss makers, you just don't want to possibly touch them at the moment. The ones that are turning to cash flow positive, there's an incentive there for you to definitely have a bit more of a look through it to see if it's sustainable. Can they even up that ante from there? So ALC ticks a lot of more boxes than some of the other stuff right now. And, to those quarterly, and I think we should quickly just talk about that. It was a pretty good quarter overall. So if you look at it, they reduced the cash outflows to, I think, 0.5 or 500,000. Big cash receipts in there as well. So again, I think we're gonna see another growth year for ALC, just with the first quarter start. Fingers crossed. Let's hope for a better year. And if things start to settle down maybe early next year, Dave, then possibly, you've got something that's really, really inexpensive. And if the market does start to look at some of these oversold type growth stocks, ALC will probably be a winner.
CXO, Wolfie, again, this had a little buy signal. It's sort of up so far 3%, I think, looking reasonably good. 3DP, you want to talk about 3DP? It's up 17%.
Yeah, I do. And this is one of the other stocks that I just briefly mentioned a few times here and there. One to watch on your watch list. You should really have this one on your watch list. Pretty good quarterly, because the actual cash receipts jumped significantly. But most importantly, it's cash flow positive this quarter. So one quarter doesn't make all of a sudden a champion stock, but it's something that the markets said, well done to you, right? Rewarding it, buying it up, and one for the future, because I actually like the business a lot. They're selling its software in the US and Australia, and they are gaining quite a big chunk of clients over there. So for me, very interesting story, and one definitely maybe for the next couple of quarters to watch and possibly buy on the up if it starts to crack through that maybe 25-30 cents.
Wolf, Bob, I can't remember if you want to talk about this one, but
well, it's so disappointing, isn't it? I mean, they've had all these positive things happen for them with the US, giving them access, giving them their permissions to go and sell their stuff. And look at it, it's just gone back to 42 cents. You're thinking, what's going on here? But it is still so messy, Dave. If you look at the quarterlies, if you look at the cash outflows, is still, you think to yourself, they need to, I think, refocus again. And because there's so many moving parts at the moment, right? It's just hard to get your head around it. But I think they need to somehow show the market that they can actually stop the bleeding, so to speak, and see how they go from there. So very disappointing, Dave. I still got a soft spot for it, but I wouldn't be touching it at the moment.
Wolf, WA1. So some of the boys on Ask the Analyst were asking us about this. Now, the market cap is still only about 30 million?
Yeah, 30 odd million, yep.
So,
it's a huge jump, right? I mean, we had the results, so that's why the some of the people asked me on the Ask the Analyst, what do you think of that? So I had to have a look at it. I mean, that's a big jump. Couple of drill holes in Australia, and they've hit a fairly interesting niobium phosphates / rare earths mineralization. Now, these three elements, I suppose, one of those elements that possibly are future type elements with your rare earths and then niobium. I think niobium is used, I think, a little bit in lithium batteries, which is also, probably one of the big jumps, but also used in other critical industries, I think in electronics and so on. So, and a plus in steel making. So there's a lot, maybe it's not a huge market, but it's something that's quite interesting, that if you find a really great deposit, it will probably get developed. And I think I saw an article on Stockhead, so I'm going to give them a shout out to them, because of course we are, it's one of our go-to, just have a read through if there's anything interesting on there. Anyway, they discuss this particular discovery about niobium. They talk about the actual industry. I think they mentioned 3 mines on there as well, Dave. And interesting enough, the 2 top mines that they've mentioned are roughly about 1 to 2% niobium. And if you look at WA1's results, right, they've had one big hit at about 0.37, 0.4, but right at the end of the hole, they stopped, and it was 1.2%. So roughly around that mark. So it's interesting. So right at the end of the hole, they've hit that really high grade niobium. So I wonder, if they further down and go, what they're going to come up with. So there's plenty of excitement there. I think there's definitely a lot of smoke going around, and at market cap of 30 million, you'd think to yourself, maybe you'd want to hold this for the moment. Or maybe, look, if you got it from at like 5 cents to 80 cents, maybe you take a profit, of course. But if you're just joining this and you bought it maybe on Friday or something like that, you're thinking to yourself, maybe I have a little bit of a play with this, because they also have gone and re-assayed that hole that they've done, re-assayed it for the top part of it, because they didn't actually do that, because they were drilling for something else completely, Dave. They were drilling for IOCG, which is a little bit different base metal type stuff they were looking for, and they didn't assay the top part, and potentially they could come up with something quite interesting. So we'll see what they do. Like I said, high risk, but something to maybe play with.
Okay, so if you did buy it from a sort of a high risk point of view, you could buy it off maybe a 60-minute. It's trading at 88 at the moment, and maybe a stop loss just under, maybe that's 73, 72 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to have a quick look at how much money they've got as well, because that could also be a key here. So just give me 1 sec, because that's the one thing I didn't look at, and how much money they've got. Maybe that's one of the jumps. We need some cash. Not that I'm skeptical or anything, Dave.
Well, they've only just come on about in March, so hopefully they've still got a little bit.
One hopes so. So I'm just going down now, and let's have a look. And they've got 2.7 million. Look, if I were them, I would be hitting the market again. I mean, you don't get that jump too often, but if they're sitting on something unbelievable, maybe there's much more to go, right? So I don't know, it's a tricky one. But I think the capital raise is on the cards. So if they want to hit this hard, drill it even further down, it's going to cost them money. It's more as a yes probability than a no.
So if you got a little bit now, hopefully you'd get a little bit on the raise.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they let you.
Oh yeah, it doesn't always happen like that, does it? Wolf, just to let you know, the BHP, Rio, FMG looking absolutely awful on the charts. I've got sell signals on them, looking really negative. And again, you saw iron ore, 84. It's looking very, very weak. So yeah, these iron ore plays, it's time to say goodbye. For
the time being, absolutely. I think there's better plays right now with China really struggling. You really not, you can't even trust the numbers coming out of China. That's globally everyone wants to hit growth on ahead. What does that mean? It means probably lower prices for commodities. All right, Wolf, and just lastly but not least, please check the dividend portfolio.
we've Wolf's made some changes on there, so you can see.
So I think that there's 4 changes on there. So I'll quickly mention them. BHP was I sell, of course, because of what we just talked about, but I've added 3 more, and they are Elders, I believe, West Farmers, and Sonic.
Okay. And please also check the growth
portfolio. That's also updated. Yes,
because there's some changes there as well.
So I think additions just for the growth portfolio. There's about 4 or 5 actually. So have a look at it.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, Wolfie. Always brilliant, and have a great day. See you, Wolfie.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.